I find these new scout cookies hard as rock.
Well, they're Kobold Scout cookies. You gotta get them to soften a bit.
I don't like that they put gravel in the cookies.
Well, you might be getting some bad batches. Maybe you made them mad, and that's why they're giving you the gravelly ones. I haven't had any gravel in mine, just... Actually, one had a gemstone in it. I, of course, pried that out because I can't eat the gemstones, but...
What? But I put gravel in yours. How come you don't have... Oh, I see what I've done here.
Ah, you switched them around. Shame. But we should probably be getting someone in to talk to soon.
Today is our day off.
Well...
Let's face it, our days off never tend to be days off.
Yes, it's been a little while, and I feel like having another person to talk to besides the two of you might be nice for today because...
How rude.
Well, I have been feeling under the weather, and you two tend to talk about the same things when we're not talking to other people. Kobold Scout cookies and...
Roasted gnomes.
Yes, talk of things that I cannot eat.
Did you pull someone in because of that? Because, we got someone.
Oh.
That, my friends, is exactly... See, like a little sparks. Oh.
Well, hello.
Oh.
I guess we don't have a day off.
How do people keep getting in here?
Oh, goodness. You're some big fellas, aren't you? Hello. This was not a part of the plan. And there doesn't appear to be any wine around here.
Oh, if you want some wine, I'm sure we can provide some.
Oh, how lovely. Oh, and your wonderful hosts, too. Oh, honestly, I was getting a little sick of the last party.
Yes.
Just, there might be some gravel in the wine.
Gravel.
Wait, did you spike the wine with gravel, too? Why are you doing this? Did I do something wrong?
Ephraim, it's not that kind of party. We are not trying to get toasted.
Alright.
So, I don't mean to butt into the banter here, but lovely cave you have here. Did I do this or did you do this?
This time you did this.
Oh.
We've had people come in here before, so you know that we are the Delegation of Dreamers. I am Rue.
I am Ephraim, and I just want to say it's never the dragon's fault.
And I am Ashura, and I have to keep an eye on Ephraim at times.
Yes, and you somehow ended up pulling yourself into the realm of forgotten memories and dreams.
Does that mean I'm forgotten?
Probably not, since you're here physically. Normally, people don't come here bodily when they can pull themselves in.
It must have been a really bad party trick if you got forgotten straight after it.
Well, I would hope not. Why? I didn't know I could do that. Is that a thing just Ifrits can do? Alright. Questions for later. Well, Delegations of Dreams. Dreamers. Dreams? Dreamers.
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 And who might you be?
Oh, well, since you asked, the folks... Well, I guess not the folks around here, but folks call me Orrossant Desange. At your service.
Orrossant Desange at your service.
That's a rather odd name. Where do you hail from?
Well, I hail from a little province called Torrentil, and I am the master of revels for the Merchants Guilds in the city of York.
Interesting. Oh, well, here comes one of the kobolds with some fresh wine that Ephraim hasn't gotten to. And thank you, Jeremy. I'm glad you took on the cue. Here, have some.
Oh, wow. Look at this. Just... Oh, my goodness. The bouquet on this. Oh, goodness. That is good wine. Do you make that here?
Well, I don't remember if this one was made here or made on one of the other islands, but it's made in this realm, at least.
This realm?
Yes. Again, the realm of forgotten memories and dreams.
Is this, say, your demi-plane?
Well, I don't know if it's not a demi-plane, it's its own plane entirely.
Oh, wow. That must make you quite powerful creatures.
Well, it's not mine. I do believe Ashura's been here the longest, so maybe it's theirs, but...
Yes, let's go with I've been here the longest.
I think Ashura has forgotten how long he's been here.
I've been here since the beginning. But anyway,
Ashura, Eophraim, and
Rue.
Rue. Fascinating. So you get a lot of wayward travelers coming through here?
Well, we usually pull people in so we can interview them and ask them questions about their life. That way, if they pass on, they're not completely forgotten. At least that's why I do it.
but we do get some random people that somehow manage to get their way in here.
Are you saying this is a path to immortality?
No, you'll still pass on, but you won't be forgotten, and it's possible that a god or something might bring you back if you've been very, good and doing the right thing or whatever bullshit they decide is a good reason this time.
It is, however, a path to avoid tax collection.
Rue, I like you. I don't think you could find any god or higher being in any of the realms that may exist that would want to bring me back.
Yes. Well, let's just say the last dealings I had with a god gave me immense power, but also a bit of a nagging irritation every so often.
You don't say. I can actually relate to that. You see these brilliant dark tattoos right here on my bicep.
Yes, they seem to be the work of some, maybe not a full god, but a demigod?
Oh, wait, you can tell?
Yes, one of the powers I was given is the ability to see magic items and ties to otherworldly creatures. So I can see that and your cursed ring, the one cursed by what I can only call Bone Daddy, unless you know the name.
Oh, so what I can tell you for sure is he hates that term, so thank you so much. No, this creature's name in the ring is Nar-la-Yathop. He's screaming at me right now. Nar-la-Yathop. And that was bestowed upon me by a, let's say, old friend. Much like these tattoos, actually.
It seems to be curses more than gifts.
Very astute.
Yes, you must have done something quite, either quite irritating or quite uncool to get those, but...
What? I dabble, and I just think sometimes people can't quite take a joke. In the case of the tattoos, I may have insulted a minor nature spirit whose follower I had been partying up with at the time. But we all got it sorted out in the end. Unfortunately, the tattoos don't exactly come off once you put them on. And the ring was traded to me, as a matter of fact. I had made a deal to help smuggle this beautiful young woman out of a city during a, what would you call it? A witch hunt, I suppose. In exchange, she gave me her husband's ring. He was passed on at the time, but apparently the ring was a little bit more than I bargained for.
And thus you got Bone Daddy. I'm never going to remember the thing's actual name, so hopefully it can't do anything to me.
Well, the good news is the two curses seem to battle each other for control within me, so when one gets ornery, as it does every single time you call it that, I just get to enjoy it thrashing about. So please continue. Do not stop. Do not ever remember its name. It pisses them off.
Good. Let's go to asking you a few questions that we would normally ask, if you don't mind.
Well, I was at a party talking about myself quite a bit, so I suppose this is no different. And plus, I'll be blunt. You seem like much more interesting company.
Thank you. I would like to know a little bit about the adventures you've been on. You seem like a well-traveled sort.
You could say that. I've worked a few jobs, as it were. I've been around, gosh, how many countries? At least 3 continents. And probably between the provinces, the states they're in, the regions, the kingdoms, I would probably say a good 56, if not more, of those.
Wow, that is a lot of places to be.
Well, I unfortunately suffer from a natural curse of long life, as it were. When was my last? I believe I turned 195 in 2 months ago.
Ah, another long-lived being.
Oh, do you folks have longevity yourselves?
As dragons, naturally, we do.
And my race is not known to die of old age.
You know, you're also probably the most pleasant dragons I've ever had to deal with.
Well, you came on a day when I'm not hungry.
Oh, oh, oh no.
I believe he's joking, because I've not seen him eat a guest yet.
You have jewels for snacks. Use those, Ephraim.
Oh, let me just hide my shoulders real quick. There we go. So you want to talk about some of the adventures I've been on? Well, let's see. Well, I mean, I could start broadly, and if there's one that catches your ear, we can start there. Been secondhand at a thieves guild. There's that one time I was stuck in a church for a month after crawling out of the Underdark. There was that lovely little drowling child I met down in that Underdark, as a matter of fact, and you'll never believe it. They were an absolute genius with firearms. Couldn't have been older than, well, they were definitely only up to my knee. So, I don't know how long drows live. They were quite young, I guess is the point there. There was, of course, that time I smuggled that woman across the country from the witch hunters. There was that time I crawled into the depths of this emerald catacombs, and I mean the walls were just absolutely made of smooth, weathered emerald, chasing down. What were we chasing down at that time? We were sent to fetch this other adventuring party, and then there was a third adventuring party involved, and for some reason they hated us. There was a goblin monk. There was that really nice minotaur, too. What was their name? Reichart?
Are you asking us, or are you asking yourself?
I am asking myself, I believe. So, do any of those catch your attention?
Let's talk about that emerald catacomb for a bit.
Absolutely. Well, actually, how that one started. I had found myself in a position of authority with a local chapter of the Hell Knights out there, and their job was to keep an eye on what I could only describe as a massive emerald spike sticking out of a mountain. And they had their own little town there. It was quite a quaint little place. And when I had happened upon it, I was, a stranger. I passed myself off as a merchant at the time, but the captain took a shining to me, and I had, told them how enamored I was with their order. And one thing led to another, and I found myself in a place of authority there. And would you have it, this group of ruffians came into town and they were looking for work. And so, one of the things we usually do with folks coming into town at that time looking for work is we tell them, go find a way into the Emerald Spire. We've seen creatures and stranger and probably enemies go in and out of that spire, but we could never find our own way in. And of course, being as useful as I was tasked with keeping an eye on them. At the same time, I may have been privy to some knowledge of a underground organization that was also trying to get into the Spire, and they were more along the lines of, let's call them people who maybe were more so outside the law. I liked them better, to be completely blunt, but the Hell Knights had their benefits. So regardless, I followed these ruffians around, sweet people, admittedly, but not really the kind I usually fall in line with. And would you have it? They found a way into the damn thing. They somehow had caught this wizard who was working in one of the deeper depths of this. I guess it was just an emerald tower. It had been hollowed out, and at each level there seemed to be different owners of each level. It was quite strange. But they had caught a young wizard having left the tower, and they convinced them to let us in. And, unfortunately, once you get into that thing, it's kind of hard to get out. Wizard slipped away, and so we decided we were going to descend a little deeper into the depths to find a way out. And that's how that adventure started. Whew, that was a whole thing.
Sounds like it. You've been on plenty of adventures, haven't you?
Yeah, ever since I was a young lad. my first job was rigging games of thimbles, with the little stones, and then you shuffle them around and you take bets on which one the rock is under. Then I was a footpad, been barkers at taverns. There was a small time in my younger days when I actually just worked for a locksmith, dockhand, privateer, freebooter. A couple of towns ago, I was a loan lender. Let me tell you, that was probably one of the best careers I'd ever actually had. But a lot more dangerous than you think. Until I eventually found my way into smuggling, and that traveled me around plenty. And in fact, that is how I ended up at the little camp with the very large Order of Hell Knights. And then we descended deeper into that, faced many trials. There was an entire floor of clockwork creatures. Unfortunately, the master had apparently perished and left all of the clockwork creatures completely masterless, as you would imagine when they die. So that was a bit of a slog to get through. And that's where we met the clockwork minotaur named Reichart. We had with us a very small creature. I believe they must have been a warforged, but they were not like any warforged I've ever seen. They were small, round of body, round of head with these big glowing green eyes, and they themselves were actually quite astute with firearms. But it turns out that the more intelligent clockwork creatures were quite fond of warforges, and so we actually got a clockwork minotaur to come join us for the rest of that adventure into the depths. Goodness me, how long ago was that? That must have been a good 5 to 10 years ago at this point.
I was gonna say that when you mentioned all your different adventures, the most harrowing when you were trapped in a church for a month. It sounds like hell.
It started out quite lovely, actually, as a matter of fact. I had been doing business in the Underdark for a couple months before that point, but that went a little sour when the drow I was working with at the time realized I may have been skimming a bit more off the top than they thought I had. So I had to make my way out from that, and I came up in this gorgeous series of rolling hills with long emerald green grass. Guess that color comes up again. And right smack dab in the middle was this lovely, and I'm talking very well maintained, white brick church. And in the distance, I could see a town, but being who I am, I see a humble church. I can't help but investigate a little bit. Plus, I may have been a little bit in disrepair at the time, and I know churches will take in strangers, usually on good faith. So I went in, talked with the priestess and the priest there, genuinely lovely people, and I took my rest. Little did I know at the time that they were performing rituals that maybe their god upstairs may not have agreed with or probably enjoyed, and I had walked myself into being their next sacrifice. The good news is there was a lot of preparation between sacrifices, and so I sweet-talked the priestess at the time, told her, about our life together, all that could happen, and she eventually let me out with a little help from this very strange creature. It was a 2-foot-tall bug creature that lived in the walls. It was a whole thing. It was very strange. But I managed to escape. I got to town. I informed the local authorities of what may have happened there. They found the evidence, and by the time a court day rolled around, I was gone.
So what do you think would have happened otherwise?
Oh, I would have been skinned. Well, first I would have been tied up. I probably would have been scarred, then skinned, then, if I survived that, probably assaulted and all kinds of other violent actions put upon me until my death to their blood god? It was one of the demon lords, I think. I can't remember the name.
So, of all the towns you visited, would you say that there's a lot of them where you might not be welcomed anymore?
What would give you that impression?
Just a hunch.
Just a hunch? Well, I would have to say your hunch is relatively accurate, my friend. I would say closer to the cities that I might not be more welcome in. I have my adventures. and living the life I do, I like to travel. I like to see new things, so I never quite stay in a town or a city too long. But I would say I'd be harder pressed to return to the larger cities, though the smaller towns tend to have less people and you'd think would remember faces better. Since you spend such a short time in the smaller towns while traveling, you can solve that problem with a cloak. When you go to the larger cities with more people where you're going to spend more time, there's much higher risk of being recognized when you don't want to be.
I have to say that's pretty accurate. It may come as a surprise to my friends here, but there's a few places that I'm not welcome in the realm I originally come from.
Oh, were you a bit of a scoundrel yourself?
There were some places where I may have swindled some people.
Swindled?
Yes. I was an adventurer for a good while, and I went on many adventures, getting me a good reputation with my hometown. But there were some places I visited, and I had some magic items that I was trying to pawn off, because I may have came by them through battle, and didn't want to keep them. And I used my natural charisma to make people think they're more valuable than they are, and they found out while I was on my way out and chased me out. That happened, surprisingly, about 4 times. And then there was the time that I made people think that a gemstone was magically imbued when I had just picked it off the ground in a cave. But
I think I have a feeling, Rue, that when all this pans out and maybe I go back to my own realm, I think you and me should go out drinking sometime.
maybe I might visit if I get a chance.
So, out of curiosity, can you three leave this realm whenever you'd like?
I know I can. I pulled myself in here and decided to stay. I have the ability to walk planes, but I have never thought to ask the two of you.
I'm not sure if Ephraim ever tries.
Well, I moved my dragon horde over here, so I wouldn't want to leave the realm where I keep my gold.
Fair.
And I have so much to do that's been a while that I've tried.
Ephraim. So I've heard a lot of tales of dragon hordes. I've only seen one myself on a very rare occasion. As no offense, but a lot of the dragons I've dealt with weren't much for conversations when I did get the chance to talk to them. I hear they tend to be incredibly varied. You say you mostly keep gold in yours. Do you happen to keep any magical equipment oddities that you found around?
No, nothing magical. It's mainly just gold and a couple of gemstones.
And that we could have done a trade. I'm a bit of a collector myself.
Really?
Yes, you do have a lot of magical items on your person.
Well, I don't know if a lot is quite accurate, but like I said, I'm a bit of a collector. If you gave me the choice between Ephraim's hoard here, which, to be clear, I would never ever think of pilfering, and an interesting trinket with a unique magical property, I'd probably go for the trinket myself. Let's see, what do I have on me right now? Well, good thing for that party, I don't really leave much behind. You see these here, these little stone coins. Each one of them has an emblem on them here. This one has a leaf on it. This one has a feather on it. This one, you see, that's actually a little image of a catapult there. When I crush these, they will have different effects. If I were to crush this leaf token here and throw it, I would be throwing about a 30-foot tall tree. This catapult one, if you can imagine, would manifest a catapult, and these ones, which I keep a couple on, with the feather on it, they will sprout wings on, well, whatever part I happen to crush it on. It's usually my hands, and through their own magical force will allow me to fly. Very useful to have on hand. I know with your natural wings here, you might not find them as useful, but very useful to have on hand. Let's see, what else do I have here?
That sort of reminds me of a person I've met who kept his pets in small balls, and then he threw the ball, and the pet would appear, and then he would use his pet to fight other pets. It was horribly cruel.
I knew a summoner once who had a very similar strategy, although he would just pull them through different planes. He did want to capture a djinn once, but I don't think he ever got around to it. Let's see. Oh, I have this right here, this little shriveled hand on my necklace here. Very simple item, but I've never found anyone quite like it. It allows me to lift small items, open doors at a distance, which you think wouldn't come in handy too much, but when you've been locked in jails as much as I have, it's very nice to be able to lift the keys off of unassuming guards when they don't know it's a magical item. When they do know it's a magical item, that's a completely different strategy. Oh boy, I actually keep a pair of lockpicks in my hair here. Oh, these boots! I can fall from great heights, not get harmed from the landing. These spectacles right here that I keep in this pocket, they can help me read many languages, which thankfully I know how to speak plenty already, but you never know what quite you run into. Let's see, what else do I have here? Oh yeah, of course, these gloves. These will help me see through walls. My crossbow can hit spirits and ethereal creatures, which I don't have on me at the moment because I was at a party, and as you can imagine, I was not expecting to fight spirits. Oh, you know what I do have on me? Where is it? There it is. Yep, it's in my boot. 1 second. There we go. This dagger with this red blade here, this is actually adamantine, which I don't know how rare that is out here, but where I'm from, it's probably one of the rarest metals you can have. And if you can see right here, if I just lean down, and this is a good solid cave floor, look how easily it just cuts right into stone like that. Oh, beautiful.
Oh, the floor.
Oh, sorry, was this well shaped?
Don't worry, I'm sure we can get it fixed.
Oh, sorry, I thought I know a couple stonemasons, I can help you out. Regardless, this I actually got back in the Emerald Dungeons. There was another group of what I could only assume to be adventurers pilfering the hordes there, and one of them had this amazing series of daggers, one of which you see in my hand right now, and they were quite capable with aiming them, so they'd be across the room, they'd throw them. We got into a little bit of a scuffle over a key, essentially. It was a little statue with a oddly shaped base, but it was a key to help us get further into the dungeons, and at the time we were thinking a way out, which was not the case, as we ended up finding out. But we got into a little bit of a scuffle, and it was essentially my role to handle this dagger-throwing lunatic. Very skilled lunatic, but lunatic nonetheless. And thankfully, they missed a very key shot, and when this dagger landed into the magical stone emerald-like material behind me, it seemed to have gotten stuck, which is great news for me. So I reached over, I grabbed the dagger, and I pulled it out, and I was going to use it against him, but they have such an odd magical property. When you throw them, I think I might have mentioned this before, you can will them to return to you, regardless of if they stabbed something. And I imagine if it landed in anything other than this odd magical material that the tower is made out of, they could have called it back with ease. But I pulled it out, and had I not gripped onto this thing with the mightiest strength I could ever conjure, because as I'm sure you can see, I'm not exactly the most physically adept creature. I'm no Umber Hulk, that's for sure. I was able to keep a good grip on it, but then the darndest thing happened. The magic in the dagger, it called to me. And it seemed like, without words, it was willing to change masters. Now, I don't know whether it was just because it liked the way I held it, or if it was just the natural property of the type of magic that was in this dagger, but it called to me. But at the same time, it still had its original master, which was, at the time, still throwing knives at me, mind you. So with a not necessarily the most clear head, I put as much willpower into commanding this dagger, this magical entity, to maintain its relationship with me at the time. And I don't think I've ever quite felt what I'd felt that day of the original owner, their murderous intent, their iron will calling their dagger back to them. And to be blunt, I don't exactly remember how it happened or exactly what I did at that moment, but this individual dagger, which the name here on the hilt, which apparently I guess they named all their knives, the Rat King Catcher, willed itself onto me and became mine, and I will say was key in helping us win that scuffle and repel the hooligans who were assailing us for that key at that time. So now I have this lovely magical dagger. I can throw it here. Watch this. Whoop! There it goes. And if I just hold my hand out like this, and that, there we go. See that? Beautiful. Perfect arc.
Amazing how it just went around that stalactite.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gorgeous. Probably one of my most prized possessions, but I'm going to tuck it away again. There we go. Sorry, I've been talking for quite a bit. I should start asking you folks some questions.
It would be a nice change. We don't get asked very much.
So, Ashur, you've been here the longest, is that correct?
Yes. I pulled Ephraim in, and Rue hopped in himself.
Interesting. Fascinating. Are you all from the same realm originally, or are you from disparate regions and planes?
Different planes.
Different planes?
When I say I've been here since the beginning,
Mm.
I mean I've been here since the beginning.
Since the spawning of this realm?
Close to it.
Close to it. Interesting. Wait a minute. You say most of the creatures who come through here are non-physical. It's manifestations or projections, as it were. Is that correct?
Usually.
At least ones that we bring upon.
Right. Sure, if you've been in and around this realm since close to the beginning, are you yourself physical?
Yes.
Oh, I was expecting a little bit more philosophical.
I can confirm. I've poked him.
It's true, he has, and he's also tried to boot me. Or was that Rue trying to convince the kobolds to do so?
I could not confirm or deny if I had a hand in that.
No, there are beings that come here in a spiritual, physical sense.
Interesting. I'm sorry for interrupting. Are you the only creatures in this realm? Are the kobolds inhabitants here en masse? Is there a kingdom in any which direction?
Anything, anyone, in any place that ends up being forgotten, this is the land that they end up.
Ah, fascinating.
I believe that after a while, the land masses that make up the islands around us start moving out and going into nightmare territory, where they eventually get lost to the nightmares and to time. This is a place of second chances, from what Ashura has told me.
Interesting.
There's been a couple of lands that's been traveling outside the edges since I came here, but I seem to have forgotten about all of them.
Well, then I guess they're still here somewhere. Out of curiosity, has any creature that came here bodied stayed here that you've interviewed?
I don't believe so.
Very few people we've interviewed are actual inhabitants of this realm.
Fascinating. How exactly do two dragons and a fae find themselves to this specific realm of the Forgotten?
For me, I believe I was being pulled in originally with the intent of being interviewed, and then I derailed things and decided that I was going to stay here because I can just pull myself bodily from one plane to another. So it was just a decision.
And he's been derailing ever since.
Yes, but at least I haven't asked the question.
The question?
Yes, it is one I ask many adventurers that we've pulled in. Have you heard of a milkshake?
I don't believe I have. Do you assail a cow? What?
No, you take a frozen dairy product,
Uh-huh.
add a non-frozen dairy product, and some flavorings, usually the juice of like a berry or some chocolate that's been melted, and you mix them together with a little bit of sugar, and it becomes a kind of creamy drink.
Ooh, that sounds quite lovely.
Yes, I haven't got to try it, but I know how it's made.
Ephraim, I believe you never got a chance to talk about yourself and why you ended up in this realm.
Oh, yeah. Well, it started with Ashura asking me to help him out to record the memories of adventurers so they don't get lost in forgetfulness forever. And I quickly noticed that, you know, the two constants of life?
Death and taxes?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
They seem to forget that this realm exists.
Oh, so maybe this is a path to immortality.
Well, I guess it's a way to stave it off for a while.
Interesting. And I assume there's no tax collectors out here.
Well, we don't have to deal with any tax collectors.
I had to deal with plenty of tax collectors in my time as a lowlander. But that's neither here nor there. Ashura,
Yes.
you are essentially the usher of this little delegation. Would that be most accurate?
I'd say yes. Ephraim and I brought in from his domain, and Rue we brought in to interview Ephraim and I, and he decided to make it his home. I don't think he ever asked for permission, though.
Did you ask for permission, Ashura?
I try, but most of the time it doesn't get through.
And I am nobility. Why would I need to ask permission to make my home somewhere? That's a joke, by the way. I am nobility, but I would have asked had I not just been yanked in here without giving any warning.
Fair, that's fair. But no, I began bringing people in. Ephraim was one of them, and he enjoyed the concept and decided to. Yeah, it's a big good move in.
And all jokes aside, I like to tease Rue, but he's good at keeping the kobolds on their feet.
Especially with the butterfly nets.
Don't forget, I pay them, even though they don't really ask for payment. I still feel bad when they do things for me without being paid. Plus, what am I going to do with all the gems I hoard?
Give them to Ephraim.
No, he has his own hoard, I have my own. Plus, I think the kobolds deserve a treat now and then. They do go out into the other lands occasionally to get us supplies when we need them, so giving them extra funds so they can play around while they're out and about, it seems a nice thing to do.
Absolutely.
So, if I may ask, are you a type of con man? Just between us.
Well, I prefer the term confidence man myself. I'm a teller of tales. I'm a magician. I'm a speaker of truths and falsehoods occasionally. Hope that answers your question.
What would you say would be one of your favorite performances you've done?
So I had, in my time in the Underdark, I had gotten to know this young drow. We called him the Rat at the time. I promise it was a much more positive title than it may sound here. He was
More endearing.
more endearing. That's exactly right. He was clever. He was impressively conniving, but also a very handsome creature, let me tell you. And we had initially started getting to know each other when we accidentally foiled each other's pickpocketing attempts. I normally don't do this much anymore, but at the time it was a good way to let off steam. You know, some people go to the taverns after their long day. Some people spar. I had decided I liked the rush of pickpocketing at the time, and in my experience, wasn't a lot of folks in the Underdark who even bothered with that, so the defenses for it were low. But we bumped into each other, which means we bumped into each other's marks, and we foiled each other's plans, which means we had to run off together. And then we ended up fist fighting in the back of a alley for about an hour and 30 minutes, which was a lot more fun than you think it would be. After we got up and dusted ourselves off, we realized we had quite a bit in common. In the Underdark where I'm from, and especially in the Drow City where I was doing my business, young men were not particularly respected or treated well, especially someone of his status. I don't even think he had anyone to look after or look after him. He was living in this back hole in the wall. Ugh, one of the worst sleeps I've ever had in that hovel. But we got to know each other, and we started taking marks together. And it turns out teamwork does wonders for that. And we had decided that we were going to try and rob the High Temple to Lolth, I believe, at that time. Which, I don't know how much you know about Drow, or maybe it's just Drow in my realm, but they are incredibly religious, and you do not mess with their gods, their priestesses, or their holy sites. Especially since, as far as I'm aware, their gods are actually relatively active creatures. But to be blunt, fuck them. So we had hatched this entire plan, but as you might be able to tell by my pink skin, my obsidian freckles and the fact that my hair is slightly on fire. I was a very known creature around the town. So, with the help of the rat, who was actually quite adept at disguising, they had dressed me up with a little bit of magic as well as a captured elf from the above world. Wouldn't you know it? And the plan was essentially, it was actually a little bit more complex than this. We had weeks of planning. But essentially was I was going to be posed as a prince of some lofty elf kingdom far away. And he had captured me and he was going to make a offering to the high priestess at the time. Now they go through this whole process when they capture an elf, especially one of high status, and that would give us time to do our deeds. But as you would have it, it turns out that the priestess there had very strong magic that allowed her to see through disguises, which, in retrospect, we probably should have expected. But we were young, we were dumb. It is what it is.
It happens to the best of us.
It happens to the best. Isn't that just right? Although I was not the best of me at that time. Regardless, we got captured really quickly, and we were thrown in a dungeon together with a lovely Dwergar. He didn't give us his name, but we called him Sketchy because he was always carving and sketching things on the walls of his cell beside us. Spoke nonsense. Never got a word of sense out of him. But still, lovely gentleman. Kept us entertained. And we were to be executed. Normally, what we had done up to that point wouldn't necessarily have been the highest of crimes, but we did do it in the most important temple in the city to the literal head of the entire cult down there. So, not the greatest. So we had to escape. And thankfully, by that time, I had done enough smuggling to be able to hide at least one little item on myself. And it was the little shriveled up lovely thing you see here. And we had faked a fist fight, much similar to the time we had in the alley, although that one was fake. And when the guards came over, I lifted the keys. And when things calmed down, then they turned around. We broke out of the jail cell with the keys, rushed them, beat them up, and dressed them up in our clothes. We dressed up in their armor, left them in the cell unconscious, locked the door, and then we made our way back out. And then proceeded to have at least 4 different conversations with different series of guards and one guard captain, in which we were sweating pebbles and lying through our teeth to make it out. Now, luckily, the armor covered the face, at least the one I had on, so they didn't see any of the very characteristic physical features of me. And we were able to escape the jail, pack up, and we decided we were going to leave together. Now, unfortunately, we got separated a little bit later, but the rat was a clever gentleman. I'm sure he's still doing well out there. And honestly, I think that's one I look back on most fondly.
Sounds like quite an elaborate scheme.
It should have been more elaborate, probably, in order to not have gotten caught, but we got our stuff and got out of there, although I did leave some magic items behind. Not super happy about that. Maybe one day I'll go back and get them.
I hope you have that day someday. And I do believe that is all the time we have. Thank you for joining us today, and be sure to send you back to your party.
Oh, are you going to send me back? Oh, well, that saves me some time, doesn't it?
Yes.
Indeed. But until we see you again, have a good awakening.